As soon as she began my vaginal exam, she let out a sharp gasp. She went, Now I think we can all agree that's one of the last things you want to hear from your doctor when she's examining you. I'll never forget that gasp. She sent me immediately for a biopsy. It was a large malignant cervical tumor. Within 2 days, I had an initial consult at St. Peter's Hospital, New Brunswick, with oncologist Dr. Michael Goldberg, the man who saved my life. His name is really just Dr. Michael Goldberg, but to this day, I can't say his name without that last part. I didn't think I'd get this emotional. The next few days, the world stopped turning while I waited for the test results and the prognosis. The word cancer changes everything. I particularly remember seeing a TV commercial where a man was behaving like the world would no longer be as we knew it because he had a little headache. A headache, I screamed at the television, a headache. Cancer has a way of putting things into perspective, doesn't it? These waiting days were a blur. I do remember reading everything I could about cervical cancer. The stages, the treatments for each stage, the survival rates. I learned that up to stage 3B, I had a fighting chance. Finally, I'm back in Dr. Goldberg, the man who saved my life's office. He sits me down and gently tells me it's carcinoma of the cervix, stage 3B. I hug him because I know from my reading that meant surgery and radiation could save me. I actually made him smile. He said no one had ever hugged him before when he told them they had stage 3 cancer. Knowledge is power. The plan was a radical hysterectomy followed by external, then internal radiation. I had the surgery on Thanksgiving Day. Bless Dr. Goldberg, the man who saved my life. He gave up Thanksgiving with his family because he said we couldn't wait another minute. The surgery took 8 hours. The cancer had spread to lymph nodes. Dr. Goldberg, the man who saved my life, felt confident he got it all. I was in the hospital for a week, then radiation started in January. During radiation, I met many amazing, brave women. We would sit in the anteroom, waiting our turn to be zapped, each of us dressed in those very chic gray hospital gowns. One day, one of these amazing women turned to me and said, "This really makes you understand the difference between a problem and an inconvenience." Wow. I've used that as my standard of measure ever since. Maybe it was going to rain for relay? An inconvenience. The toilet's clogged and I'm having 12 people over for dinner? An inconvenience. You know, the radiation made strange changes to my saliva that later down the road caused me to have lots of dental issues and lots of dental work done. Still, just an inconvenience. As all too many of us know, having cancer gives us a clear understanding of how selective we need to be about labeling something as a problem. After external radiation, I had internal radiation, a radium implant. What fun that was. Not. Here's how it went. I'm at the hospital. They position me on my back, legs in the air, no moving for 24 hours. Everyone leaves, and in walks a doctor dressed in a full hazmat suit, pushing a 3-foot-high lead canister on a handcart. You know, the kind you see in nuclear reactor disaster movies. With forceps, he extracts a tiny radium capsule from the canister and inserts it, you know where. No one was permitted in my room during this 24 hours. There was a danger radioactive sign on my door, just to be sure. Hard to attract a crowd with that label. On the plus side, I didn't need a nightlight that night. Glad you guys are laughing. This is supposed to be funny. My cancer had progressed so far because I had been negligent. I hadn't gone for a pap test in 8 years. I just kept putting it off. It's too embarrassing. It's too uncomfortable. I don't have the time. I think every woman can relate. It's just that some are braver than me. Let me just say that during my cancer treatment and the checkups afterwards, there I was, more times than I can count, sometimes more than once a day, up on that hard table, feet in those cold stirrups for a vaginal exam. The very same exam I was embarrassed to go for, and so had avoided for 8 years. And did I mention, St. Peter's is a teaching hospital. Dr. Goldberg, the man who saved my life, was so proud of his work on me. He labeled it a classic case, and he invited all the students and interns he could round up to take a peek. Every time. He would always ask me if I minded. Once I said, why not? Bring them all in. Anyone in the waiting room want to take a look? How about the maintenance staff? You know, when Marianne asked me to speak tonight, my initial reaction was one of terror. I was honored, but it was mostly terror. But then I thought I could swallow my fears long enough to share a vitally important message with every woman here, and a message for every man to tell every woman he cares about. Get regular Pap tests. If appropriate, get the HPV vaccine. Be knowledgeable about possible symptoms and don't ignore them. I'm so grateful for these 25 years. I've lived to experience so many wonderful things in life, things I no longer take for granted. During this time, I got to see my son get married to my wonderful daughter-in-law, Cindy, who gave birth to my amazing granddaughter, Mia, who's 7 years old now. I got to gleefully retire and paint to my heart's content and take up kayaking. I got to go parasailing, which was a bucket list item. I also got to do a stand-up comedy routine in front of a real audience, which was another bucket list item. And finally, I got to rediscover my favorite rock band, Chicago, and behave like a screaming teenage groupie at their concerts, which has been about 12 in the last couple of years. I need to add the Chicago thing of mine, a total embarrassment for my son, Jay. Speaking of Jay, my only child, he was 23 when I got cancer, and he became my caregiver, housekeeper. He learned how to cook. He was and is amazing. Tomorrow morning, Jay's running in his first 5K here in honor of my 25-year milestone. He's put together a team of friends who are running with him called Team Ginny, 25 and Thriving. And he's raised over $1,000 so far for Relay. Jay wrote something very sweet about our journey, and he'll be sharing it before the race. I hope you'll all be there to hear his story and cheer on all the runners. Finally, another of the awesome things I've gotten to experience in these 25 years is Relay for Life. It was Dr. Chris Riley who got me involved 7 years ago when I moved here from the Jersey Shore and needed a chiropractor. 1 minute, I'm in his office for an adjustment, and the next thing I know, I'm signed up for his Friends in the Fight team. Pretty slick, Dr. Chris. Actually, thank you, Dr. Chris, for getting me involved. What a vitally important cause and wonderful way to pay it forward. Actually, I think being part of Relay is a little selfish on my part, because I always feel like I get more back than I give. You know, being able to be here tonight is because of continued advances in cancer research, detection, and treatment. Advances made possible because of Relay and other ACS awareness and fundraising events. Grateful doesn't even begin to express how I feel, but too many are not so fortunate. We need to keep going until the day when cancer and survival rates are ancient history. We can do it. Cancer, get a clue, will ya? All right, I'm done. It was a theme. I just want to say, your days are numbered. We're going to finish the fight soon.